Systems thinking, emergent properties and processes. Gestalten, meaning shape in German, is a school of psychology founded in the 20th century that laid the foundation for the modern study of human perception. Gestalten psychologists argue that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What does this mean? We will use an analytical approach called parts and whole approach to analyze three pictures from Gestalten psychology. For each of the three pictures, we will study the relationship between the parts and the whole. In the first picture, there are four Pac-Men, which are the parts. When the Pac-Men are organized in a certain way, the whole, a square, emerges. In the second picture, the parts are three Pac-Men. When these three Pac-Men are organized in a certain way, a triangle emerges, which is the whole. In the third picture, the parts are 12 corns. When the corns are aligned in a certain way, a sphere emerges. The square, triangle, and sphere are patterns, or the whole, that emerged due to the specific arrangement of the parts. From this example, we can see that the whole results from the interactions and structure of the constituent components. The properties and processes of the whole are not observable in isolation, or without the alignment of the parts. From a young age, children wonder about the concept of life. Many children believe that life is just simply energy, and that only living organisms contain energy. Let's use the parts and whole approach to analyze these ideas. First, we analyze parts. The body of an animal is made of many cells. Each cell contains components and subcomponents, such as the membrane, nucleus, organelles, molecules, and atoms. These parts carry out specific functions. For example, the nucleus stores DNA, mitochondria produce energy through cellular respiration, ribosomes are the sites of protein synthesis. Now we study the whole. When all parts of a cell function appropriately, the cell can grow, function, and reproduce, giving it life. Life does not exist in the individual parts, but rather as an emergent property of the cell as a whole. This tells us that life is not energy. Organic molecules like carbohydrates and lipids store energy, but they do not have life. Similarly, a dead animal has organic molecules and therefore energy, but it does not have life. Let's look at another example. After dropping blue dye in a glass of water, the blue dye is seen moving from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Over time, the blue dye is evenly distributed throughout the water. We call this phenomenon diffusion. Our instinct tells us that dye particles must move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Is this correct? Now let's use the parts and whole approach to analyze this phenomenon. The parts include water molecules and dye particles. Water molecules move in random directions. They collide with the dye particles, causing the dye particles to move randomly. The dye particles move in all directions, not just from high concentration to low concentration. We call this random movement Brownian motion, which is named after the Scottish botanist Robert Brown. In 1827, Brown observed this same phenomenon while studying pollen grains suspended in water. The directional movement of the blue dye is diffusion. It is an emergent process caused by the random motion of the water molecules and the dye particles.